Jordan, welcome to Becoming Okay. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you. And thank you for having me on.
I've been really pumped actually because as of late, I obviously gave you a brief. I've rebranded. I'm going into this wellness mindset, mental health era of mine, and having conversations with anyone in the military is actually one of my favorite things to do. And I joked, I'm becoming a military podcast. I'm not, but I just seem to gravitate towards you guys. There's something about your mindset, the way you think and do things. But the military, being in the Marines, was that your first calling or was it sport?
For me, going back to 14, 15, 16, all I wanted to do was be a basketball player. And I was fortunate to have a journey, a different kind of journey within my basketball career that still allows me to play now whilst still being a serving Royal Marines commando. And it's something that I actually think that the two go really hand in hand. So just to take you all the way back. So at 14, I started playing basketball in the National League at City of Birmingham Rockets. We were fortunate to have a really good group at that age. A few of the boys were on the England squad. And for me, it was, everybody in this city that wanted to play basketball wanted to play at this club because it was one of the best teams in the country. I was fortunate to make that. And as it unfolded, I actually started to become pretty decent at this game, which then led to me just wanting it more and more, wanting to work hard, wanting to spend every day, every lunchtime, every break time in the sports hall after hours of nausing my teachers to let me into the gym to just shoot, to work on my shooting. And, that unfolded and allowed me to play at a pretty decent level. I went out to the States and then I played in the British Basketball League, where I've had some incredible experiences. And I think that set me up for where I am today.
So my background isn't sporty. I gym. That's as close as it gets to sport. I maybe run. But I'm not a very competitive person, I wouldn't say. And I wonder when you think about people that are high performers, incredible athletes and, Olympians, what is the driving force behind, why did you want to be in that gym playing basketball all of the time? What does it do for you? Is it because you wanted to be the best or is it because it was doing something for you mentally that nothing else could compare to?
This is a really challenging question because when I was young, I've always kind of had this mentality. I've always wanted to be the hardest worker in the room. I've always been willing to put time into my craft. Now, for me, it was, I would sit back, I would watch basketball, I would love every single thing about the game. But to this day, the one thing that I really and truly love is there's nothing better than an individual workout, just you and a coach being able to get after it, being able to improve on your craft. And the competitive nature does absolutely come into it. I have a list of core values within my notes, and it's something that I go through with my clients now, where we ask people to define their core values. And what I mean by that is what matters to you now that's going to matter to you in 10 years' time. Now, immediately, this word, competitiveness, comes up. And some people are like, well, if they're in their 50s, they're like, I'm not going to be competing in 10 years. And my question is why? Your age might not allow you to compete within the gym environment for yourself or on a basketball court for me, but it doesn't mean that there won't be some elements of competition you can still bring into your life. So for me, competition is a core value for me. Now that just might look like in business, that might look like it's with myself. This is something that I'm never going to leave because it's also something that gives me life to be able to go and pursue more things from myself while still being fulfilled and content within the process.
So you said compete with myself, which I was going to bring up because I'm in the middle between is there a way to have healthy competition? And I wonder if really it comes back to competing with yourself. For anyone that's listening that's thinking, I want to fall in love with competing with myself, challenging myself and holding myself accountable. I want to move my body every day. I want to join the gym. It's a brand new year. This is the goal I'm setting. But every time I go to the gym, I hate it. I don't want to do it. I end up quitting. It lasts a couple of weeks. How can I get into the mindset of falling in love with competing with myself and consistently challenging myself by moving my body and not letting myself down in that sense? Because we all know how important it is, but it's so much easier sometimes to just be like, I'm not crawling out of bed this morning to do that because I really don't want to.
So there's two ways to look at this, and there's two actual active, actionable steps that you can take within this as a process. So the first one I would talk about is reverse engineering your life. So if we go, and this is pretty morbid, but we go and we look at your life from the end, and we, you know, it's your own funeral, and someone stood at the front and they're giving your eulogy. Now, what do you want this person to say about you? How do you want to be remembered? What was your relationship like with your family? What was your relationship like with your finances? What was your relationship like with your friends and everything that comes with it? What was your relationship like with yourself? Now, when we start to dig into this, we really, because it is so morbid, it can really hit home that you will want to be remembered in a certain way. You will have these thoughts, these feelings, these desires, these passions that you really want to go and pursue. So if that's the end of your life, how can we work back to reverse engineer that? So first of all, we've got to look at the things that we need to establish, the goals, like you said. Now that could be, it could be traveling. It could be going to, you know, 50 countries by the age of 50. How many do I have to hit within the next 5 years? It could be a fitness related goal. It could be some bucket list things. Now, all of these things might link into that, what's being said within your eulogy. Now, when we come back from there, we can now start to design our life and live with intention to create a roadmap in order to take us there, which means we have to hit certain parameters. We have to hit certain processes. And this is a really big thing that we want to focus on is the process. So if we start to hit the processes, the outcome takes care of itself. Another way of doing this is by looking at a 10-year goal setting guide, or a cycle, as I like to call it, which I just alluded to before. And this would first start off with defining your 10-year core values. What matters to you now that matters to you in 10 years' time? Once we've done that, we're going to work backwards. We're going to find out these core values. We're going to go back to our 5-year blueprint. What does our life look like in 5 years' time? And I'm talking about, what things do you really want to go and pursue? Like, be bold with these goals. Something that excites you, something that you feel that you will enjoy. Once we've set this 5-year blueprint, what does it smell like? What do you see every day? What do you feel? How do you feel it? How have you got there? Once we've defined all that, we can then come back and we look at a year from now. So now we're only 12 months ahead. What do I need to do that's in line with that 5 years? Where do I need to be in 12 months' time? This can now be our 12-month goal. When we work back from that, this is a great one to do in January. We can break it into 90-day segments, but all we're going to focus on is the first 90 days. What do I need to have achieved? What do I want to achieve? What is my goal for 90 days' time? Once you've established that, guess what we're going to do? We're going to break it down. So every single day, what are my 3 to 5 to 7 things that I need to do each day in order to get there? Now, all of a sudden, instead of a wild 10-year goal that we've got no real interest in, we've just created a process of things to do that become our staples on a daily basis that allow us to go and pursue the outcome that we're trying to get to. So that's 2 ways that you can definitely do it. But if you notice, the recurring theme here all comes back to the process, and that's something that I'm huge on.
What I really, really love about that is obviously those incremental daily changes that you're putting in place. You're breaking it right down to one day at a time. And I think that's a far easier way to set goals and for people to hold themselves accountable to it. But with most things, gym being one of them, but anything self-help really, I think the initial process is a bit of a chore. Then you get into it, it becomes quite addictive because you're starting to reap the reward of what's happening. You're feeling better, you're looking better, you're achieving things that you never thought you would before. And then you kind of get to a point where some days you wake up and you don't feel like it. Things start to stagnate, they start to drop off. I wonder, how have you, with your clients, personally kept them accountable? Like, what's kept them motivated to not stop?
So I'm glad you've asked that, because we get this as a pushback, and we also get, well, what if my life's to change in 10 years' time? And this is why I think it's so important to have your core values, as they can be a little bit more subjective. They can have room for maneuver. As we were talking about competition, it might not look like being competitive in the way that you first put it down. Your family environment, your family unit might have changed. Your financial wealth and everything might have changed. So you might look at it a little bit different, but the foundation's still there. Going back to what you just said, and when people have a lull within their motivation and they're struggling to create a discipline. So first of all, it's really important that we establish discipline within the times that we are motivated. So we hear time and time again, it's discipline, it's not motivation. This is what gets you there. But actually, the easiest time to build that discipline is when you are motivated. If you try and build that discipline when you're not motivated, it becomes a really tough task. But also, how often do you take time to reflect? Now, with my clients, we will regularly reflect. Every quarter, we'll reflect on the 90 days. Every year, we'll reflect on the 12 months before. And I usually get them to do that with their phone in hand, because we forget things. But guess what? When you've got your phone in hand and your timestamp pictures, you can go back. Oh, I forgot I did this in December. I forgot I did this in February. And you can go through it and it rejogs your memory, refreshes your memory. But when we're constantly reflecting, we now start to highlight all of the positive things that we may have forgotten about instead of clinging on to the negatives consistently. There's other things such as a feel-good file. So where have you overcome these feelings before? Have you got a notes in your, have you got a notes file on your phone that says, do you know what? I overcame my anxiety on this day, and this day. And do you know what? Although I have these feelings, this trepidation of going towards whatever it may be. Previously, I've had a client that had a vast amount of travel anxiety. All that we did was really dive into how many times has she been in these environments and overcome them successfully. Now, the answer to that was damn near every time she had not had a negative experience, but because she was so hyper-focused on the minimal times that she had, that was all she could see. But now, by revisiting, reflecting, and reminding ourselves of the positive things that have come of it. And listen, I think you could look at the best athletes in the world across all sports. You could look at the most successful business people in the world across all different types of businesses. And anybody that tells you that every single day they love to do the thing that they are doing every day and it doesn't become tedious and they want to do this each day, if you show me that person, I'll show you a liar. It's remembering that everybody goes through the times of feeling down, feeling like you don't want to do it, but understanding that the difference between those that succeed and those who don't are the ones with the ability to get themselves going and just get out the door.
Mm. I find the difference between discipline and self-punishment a very fine line. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel that you can have a couple of days where you take it off, and like you say, we're all human. There is not one person out there that has loved every single day doing what they're doing repeatedly and not had a moment where they've fallen off track. That's not possible. But for some people, that have fallen off for one day, and it turns into 3, and then it turns into 7, and then it's a month, and then it's 2 months, and you go from the point of being extremely disciplined and saying, I can do this, to, okay, I'm going to let myself off, to now it's been so long, I'm in this downward spiral, and actually I feel guilty and I feel worthless and like I let myself down. I think your mind can be a very scary place in those moments.
So now imagine if we set the parameters for these lulls, these low periods. So we've already got an action plan for when they come. Now in the military, we say no plan survives the first contact. Completely understand that. Like, you might have to adjust, you're going to have to change things. And when we are setting a goal, we do really go for blue sky thinking. We need to have the ability to adapt within the process. But if we already can identify the obstacles and identify the barriers for us within the thing that we are trying to achieve, and we already have a set process, a set method to overcome these barriers and obstacles, it makes us a lot more likely to succeed because we're just following the plan. We're following the pamphlet and we're moving through. So we could actually start to look into the things that might occur and create a plan when we're in this motivated period, which is in turn creating our discipline. Completely agree with what you said about the self-punishment though. And I think we see this in fitness a hell of a lot. I think we see so many people that they don't have a healthy relationship with the gym, and it's actually become something that masks a lot of their prior trauma. And that's another issue in itself. But if we look in this personal development sphere, this self-help sphere, it all has to come together, and it's not all going to be plain sailing. It's going to be up and down. But we would rather hit damage control than complete capitulation.
And I think this is something that's really important about having a coach or someone like yourself support you through it. Because I think 1, it's a little bit of hand holding. It's someone else to hold you accountable. But 2, I think in the world of mindfulness and self-help, there feels like there is 1,000,001 different ways to cope. different ways to work through something, the frameworks, the tools, it's endless. There's so much information out there that it bombards you, it's consuming, and it's like, where do I even start? And having someone that can actually personalize that for you and show you that this is not a one size fits all process. Let's get down to the nitty gritty of how you work. Like for me, I know I'm more motivated in the morning. If beforehand I used to bin the gym off because I was going in the evenings, and it was because after a full day's work I didn't want to go, and it was even harder. I have to go to the gym first thing in the morning now. I have to move my body first thing because I know that is the only time I'm going to be dedicated enough and disciplined enough to go and do it. So I think you have to work out, almost break it down to your hour by hour routine of the day. And when do you know you feel a bit lower or a bit more slumped? When do you need to give yourself a pat on the back and a break and say, you're allowed 30 minutes now, because that's when you usually start to deteriorate, without punishing yourself and thinking, no, you have to keep pushing through, because you end up giving up. It's like setting those extreme goals of, I have to lose like a stone in a week. Like you're just setting unachievable goals for
Yeah,
what?
wholeheartedly agree. And I think actually, like you spoke there about movement, and I think it's been put out. It's actually even before that. Like when you get up and you make your bed, you get in the shower, you do these things, these small, tiny wins that essentially compound to become the productive day, which is the bigger win, the productive month, even bigger. But it starts, you get up, you make your bed, you feel good. You feel good about yourself. You go to the gym, you feel even better. But now we're actually getting, the scientific benefits as well. The endorphins are flying, you're feeling good. Now you're actually able to have a bigger output because you're firing on all cylinders. You're able to get going. You're more productive, all these different things. Now, obviously, if you are training a lot, if you have a high workload, you are naturally going to start feeling tired at points. And it's in these periods that you have to understand that putting something back into yourself, although it feels like it might take time away from your business, from your craft, it's actually the things that allow you to have a far higher and far greater output across the board. People don't view it that way. People view it as, it's not time spent working on the project. But if the project isn't getting your full attention and your full commitment because your cup's not filled, is it value time?
I like that. Mm. Take me back to like when you went into the Marines. Then what age were you going into there? What was the choices or your path that pushed you towards that? Going into the military is, as my dad used to always tell me, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's not a career. It's a life. It's a livelihood. It's who you become. It becomes everything you're consumed by. So I wonder, yeah, let's go back to there, and then let's talk a little bit about perhaps the highs and lows of that period too, how much it's taught you, because I know, although basketball has been your first and one and true love, I feel like the Marines definitely made you, or a big part of you, who you are today.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, like I would say that I think I wouldn't credit with just one thing with being the making of myself, but I would credit a whole host of different things that I'll get into. And I think in order to understand this, we have to go back to me being younger and playing basketball. So I was fortunate to have, a decent basketball career for somebody within the UK. Went off to the States, played out there, had an incredible experience. Going all the way back to when I was 14, I was playing, as I mentioned at the very start of this, in the National League, and there was a game where we played against Manchester Magic in the national quarterfinal, and they were the best team in the country. We were maybe a top three team, but this was a big game. Now, within that game, I played for maybe 1 minute, and that was it. And at that point, I never wanted to have that feeling again of not really playing in a game. Hence me wanting to shoot the ball in break times and lunch times and be the best player that I could. By the end of the next season, I was within the England squad. Moving forward from there, picked it up, started playing the National League, went out to the States, came back, and then played in the British Basketball League. I had a sort of topsy-turvy time whilst within the Leicester Riders programme. And then I dropped down 4 divisions and I went back to the club that I played for as a junior within the men's team. And there was one particular game where I was there. I'd fallen out of love with the game. I was always able to really shoot the ball. That was my main strength in basketball. And I went through a confidence crisis that led me to completely reconstructing my jump shot, which went on for years. It was a super difficult time. I didn't want to receive the ball on the offensive end. I always had confidence in myself as a defender, but basketball's two ways. And I had to essentially reinvent myself as a player. Within this time, I went out the night before a game. I'll never forget this. Night before a game, I'm playing in Division 4. I've been playing 5 leagues above, 4 or 5 leagues above. And I had the worst game of my life. There's no two ways about it. I shot 0 for 9 from the free throw line, and anyone that knows anything about basketball, that's horrendous, especially compared to my career percentage. I had the worst game you could ever imagine. And I've never been so embarrassed in my life. And I looked around the room and I thought, like there's guys that are giving their heart and soul to this. This will be the highest level that they'll play. It's the people taking time away from their family. And I'm here, and I went out the night before and I'm not taking it serious. And who do I think I was? And that was a really hard moment for myself, because it was also so out of character. It was so far away from my identity that I'd always been known as someone that really cares, someone that will really work hard and everything else. After that, I never took it like that again, never took it for granted again. I went on to be one of the top scorers in the league for the rest of the season. And it led to me going all the way back up to the British Basketball League and playing in Worcester the next year, which I had one of my favourite seasons to date. Now, within that moment, that gave me a choice, and it gave me a lot of perspective within my life, because at that point, my life could go one way or the other, and I had a decision to make, and I only wanted to go one way, for my family, for myself, for my parents who put so much into me. That then obviously took me to playing at Worcester. Now that year, I kind of said it's a make or break year. Depending on how it goes, I will join the Marines. I'd actually already applied to join the Marines. So when I had applied the first time, I'd applied as an officer. I didn't know. I just went to the Armed Forces Careers Office, came home, said to mum and dad and joined the Marines, and they were like, what? Now, in my mind, I'd always said, if I don't get where I want to get to in basketball, I'm going to join the Marines. But I hadn't really been vocal about it because there'd been no reason to. And now it was kind of the time where I'd put your money where your mouth is. So came home, I applied as an officer, and I passed everything to be a Marines officer. But in the Corps, if you aren't one of the top 60, then you won't make the batch. So I was borderline making the batch. Found out that I didn't. So played basketball at Worcester for another year, and then I decided to go in as one of the lads. Joined at this point, and for me, everything became about not just from all my prior assessments and everything else. I didn't just want to pass out. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to have the best assessments. I wanted to have the best of everything. I'd really push myself to the max. And that's kind of been the recurring theme for my whole life, not through anything other than some of it down to competitive spirit, some of it down to seeing how far I can really push myself. And it led to where I'm at now. I'm a pretty decent military career. It was something that really pushed me through. Obviously, joining Lympstone, I'd say that having a background within team sports really sets you up for that environment. Even before that, I'd shared a room with my brother my whole life. I'd been around the lads at basketball, lived with the lads at basketball. Now I'm going into this environment where you're constantly with the lads. And I sort of understand that, there's no bad days. You can't bring in your bad day to this environment. You can, and it'll be looked after, but you can't let it affect your performance. We're constantly striving for excellence. The only thing that I would say is I went from an environment where you are primed to perform under the most perfect conditions possible to trying to be primed to perform under the most difficult of conditions, which wasn't always plain sailing. I got injured in training, had pneumonia in training, took me 23 months to pass out. It was a process.
That was a really huge part of your story when we first spoke for me, because I remember you talking so much about always wanting to be the best, and you were always constantly on the go. And the thing that never let you down every single time was your mind and your body. And, you poured your heart and soul into everything, to have then gone from one day training the way you did to being bedbound and not knowing, was there an end goal at that point? Did you know it was going to be 23 months, or was it I don't know how long this could be endless for me?
Yeah. So essentially, just to give a bit of background on that. So I joined training. I was doing pretty well in training. I was a section commander. For those of you that don't know, there'll be sort of 4 sections within training. I was a section commander, fortunate to lead some of the lads. Now, I'd gone from being one of the fittest in training. We have something called a gym superior, a gym pass out. I'd done that. So all of a sudden, I'm at the back. I'm coughing. Well, wrong. We went on an exercise. And after the exercise, I came back and I was coughing and I couldn't keep up with the troop. And I'd gone from being one of the fittest. And it just so happened it was winter, middle of winter. We'd just come out of the gym. Now we're doing everything outside. And it's kind of like, oh, can this guy not survive in the cold? And I think, like, stereotypically, it might be something that people would tend to expect. Um, and I think it got assumed that might be the case. Completely understandable. But as I started to cough some more, we went on to bottom field, and bottom field is the thing that you dream about when you join the Marines. It's where the assault course is. It's where you've seen people work so hard. You've seen people go through all of the trials and tribulations that the Corps has. So this is a really exciting time, and you're chatting around with the lads about what time do you think you'll get. Well, it's our first session on bottom field, and I've gone to go across the monkey bars. As I've swung forward, my shoulder came out, and as I swung back, it gone back into it as a sublux. That was on the first monkey bar, so I changed my technique, managed to get across the monkey bars, jumped off, now my shoulders come out properly. And bloody-mindedness or stupidity, I started trying to climb up to the zigzag wall with my overarm out, till I get pulled off and they put it in. Now, if you remember, I said that I was coughing. We'd been to Normandy just prior to this, and it became a joke. Dawes is dying, Dawes is dying. And like the lads were in t-shirts at one point, like on the coach, because it's quite warm, and I was in a hoodie, coat, and I was still shivering. So marrying this up with my dislocated shoulder, we've gone up to the med bay, and I've managed to convince them to, I'm good. I'll be able to go on exercise the next day. And they put my shoulder back in, and they were like, yeah, okay. And looking back on it now, she was definitely like, yeah, okay, we'll see in the morning. But I was like, oh, she's let me go. I've got away with it. So I've gone back to my accommodation. I'm packing my Bergen, and my shoulders came out 3 times. As I've done that, I've put it in off the locker 3 times, and the lads in my room were great. There was a few boys, Swanee, Ricky Blight, Devo, like they all packed my Bergen for me. Ricky was only 16 at the time. He packed my Bergen for me, and I was convinced the next day until I woke up in the morning and I couldn't move my shoulder. As we're moving forward, and I know the 2 stories are kind of intertwining here, I get sent home on sick leave, and my parents were away. I was staying at my mum and dad's, and my dad FaceTimed me, and they kept FaceTiming me, but I felt so bad. I just felt so bad. That's the only way to describe it. I was still coughing, and I was like, no, I'm fine. I'll go for a walk. I'll get some Sudafed, whatever it was. Then the next day I decided to go out with the boys. I was thinking, oh, I'll shake it off. Day after that comes, wake up. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm going to die. And then people are like, oh, you just got a hangover. I was like, no, I genuinely feel like I'm going to die. My dad kept FaceTiming me throughout the day, and then the one time he did, I just dropped my phone, hit the deck. My dad's disabled from a respiratory standpoint, so he has a very good relationship with the doctor. So he managed to call the doctor surgery. They sent someone around. My brother came round, rushed me to hospital, and then next thing you know, I had one arm in a sling, the other attached to a drip. And I was in hospital for a week with pneumonia, which had been slowly shutting my body down, which started to make it all make sense. So in one sense, it's a shame I did my shoulder, but in another, it might save my life. So after that, yeah, the lads tended to have a laugh about that because I was so slow moving around, and had surgery, rehab, and back in, which was a whole different story in itself.
So something I hadn't shared with you yet is that my background is a singer, so I was a wedding singer, and so that was the dream. And I ended up having vocal injuries, and it was so much. I had my tonsils out. I was like consistently in ears, nose, and throat. Just it was becoming a more and more stressful period, and obviously stress was just making the condition worse. And it got to a point where I was quite comfy to say, like, look, I think I'm quite done with this. Like, I'm going to go on and do something new. This is just one part of my life, and it wasn't meant to be. But that is one of the hardest things you ever have to go through when you pour your heart and soul and commitment into something, and an injury or something completely out of your control sets you back. I wonder, how did you manage through all those months of inability to do anything, really?
I set out, having come from where I'd come from, and to pursue this. I was done with basketball, and I set out to achieve the goal of getting my green lid. And I'll be damned if I didn't do absolutely everything in order to succeed with that. So once I had gone into what they call Hunter Company, I basically just found a way to survive that. There's a lot of negativity in there. There's a lot of people that are injured. There's some lads that are being a little bit soft, to put it bluntly. That, maybe they might want the plaudits of saying I'm in the Marines, but they're not really. And for me, I managed to surround myself with great people within there that all wanted to succeed. In fact, 3 of which we ended up in the same company, Bravo, together. And we had a great training team. We spoke to the training team and they would be very understanding. And if you were someone that really, really wanted to achieve that goal, and remember the pass out rate isn't huge, the completion rate. If you were somebody that really wanted to achieve the goal, they would be quite understanding of that. And, it has to be a harsh environment. It has to be an uncomfortable environment because otherwise people can get too comfortable. And you kind of know and you learn to see through it. Now, for me, although I had this huge sort of macro goal, and if we broke them down into sort of much smaller micro goals, it became about hitting different phases. So pre-surgery, there was that much damage to my shoulder. I couldn't have surgery for 6 months anyway. After, I actually ended up having surgery after 7 months, and then it was 8 months, 9 months of rehab after that. So for me, it became easy. It was like, right, what can I do? Now, I couldn't lift my shoulder above 90 degrees without it coming out. I couldn't put it across my body without it coming out. So first of all was just trying to get used to life like this. Second of all, okay, what exercise can I do? What can I do prehab wise to make this better in the long run? Following this, what sort of thing will allow me to come out of this place in the best place possible? What can I pay attention to? Can I improve my map reading skills? Can I do my navving? Can I do all these things that allow me to be in a far better position? How can I educate myself to come out of here and succeed? Now, passing out for me, of course, it would have been enough, but I wanted the King's Badge. I wanted to be the best recruit in my troop. I wanted to be a diamond. I wanted to be able to pick my unit that I was going to, which I saw this as an opportunity to improve myself. If I'm going to be here longer, I can come out of here at the best possible position. It would have been so easy to focus on all of the things that I didn't have. But instead, if we draw some attention to the things that we do have left, that was a massive part. Now, for me, that comes from watching my father, watching my auntie go through years of disability. My aunt unfortunately passed away last year. My dad's still with us, and some days he struggles from a respiratory standpoint to get from the living room to the dining room, and it's a 3-bed semi-house. It's not huge. Now, if they focused on all the things that they couldn't do, there would have been no life to live. My aunt had carers coming in every day. She had a third of her foot amputated, followed by at the ankle, followed by below the knee, above the knee, and then at the hip. And on her deathbed, she was still saying to me, she has so much to live for, so much that she wants to go and do, so much that she will go and do. Now, when that's been the example that's put out in front of you, you learn that you can't just channel yourself into the negative. Yes, you can be aware of it. And I'm not talking about this toxic positivity. I'm talking about there's a way to get over everything. There's a way to get around everything. And as long as I have the chance and as long as I have some hope, I'm going to try and allow myself to succeed by staying in the best headspace possible by focusing on the things that I can do. So breaking those goals down, overcoming these things, that felt like second nature to me. And going through this whole time, at the time, somebody would have asked me, what was your why? And I would have had no idea. I remember sitting in an election, someone started talking about your why, and I was thinking, that's bullshit. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just doing it. I want to be the best. And I didn't know at the time. And although I didn't know what my why was, what I do understand now is I wanted to be proud of myself. I wanted to achieve. I'd sat and listened to my parents who have had really successful police careers. My mum's had multiple commendations. My dad has got the Queen's Police Medal. And I sat around dinner tables and watched how proud they were to share their stories, knowing they'd done something for others, how my friends would look up to them with such respect, how they'd been able to create a home. And although we didn't have a lot of money, everybody wanted to be at our house, and our house was like the smallest of all my friends. And all these things was something that I was chasing. And I would use some tools like visualization, reframing, and all these things in order to help me get there. I just didn't know I was consciously doing it. And what I have come to look at now is a quote by a guy called Carl Jung, who said, until you make your subconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate. Now, as I got older, as I got into coaching and I started to develop empathy, I realized that all of these things were just etched heavily inside my subconscious. And I've done a lot of work now to bring it to my conscious mind in order to be able to help others.
Can I ask, how old are you now?
32.
Would you be most scared of not achieving? Like if you are on your deathbed, what's some of the goals you've set out? What's one of the things that would terrify you most of saying, I didn't achieve that?
That is a great question. If we was looking at it objectively, I would say not finishing my life and feeling my own sense of fulfillment, contentment, and enjoyment. Like the finances will come, but I've also learned from living in a wealthy area and when we was younger, not having a lot of money, a warm home, a happy home far outweighs the things that money can buy. And there's always something that you can look to go towards and to be happy. So I would say it's really not feeling a sense of achievement for the intangible things over the tangible ones.
And that fulfillment piece there is oh my gosh, so huge, isn't it? And I think when you grow up, you really define how you feel fulfilled by external things. Like if people, a lot of people do put it down to money, fortune, success, and as silly as it sounds, like, and you see the people talking and you think, oh, they're just hippy dippy, they're airy fairy. But when you can walk out in the morning and appreciate like the sun on your face and the fact that you can move your legs and there's someone that can't, like when you walk into a gym and you're like, I can be here. There's some people that physically struggle to get out of bed to be here. And I can actually get out here and just do it freely. But when you've gone from someone that couldn't move their arm above 90 degrees and now you're walking around, like those are the small senses of fulfillment. But I think we chase these huge impacts that people are famous for, that everything we then go about in life feels less fulfilled.
And this is an issue because we lose sight of the things that matter because we're constantly trying to latch on to the great, to the huge. And if we don't reflect on and we don't look upon the small wins, the small positives and the standards that we've instilled in our life, what else do we have? I'm injured right now, which I haven't mentioned. I've had a hamstring tendon rupture, which has ruled me out for this entire basketball season, which means I'm spending hours in rehab. Obviously, I've been through it before. I'm older now, but it's also not just yourself. Like it's the impact it has on others along the way. And the reason I'm using this as an example because it's a physical example. But when I had surgery and I'm in a brace for 11 weeks at 90 degrees, it takes a village, right? Like my wife running 2 businesses, having to look after me. We just launched another business. My mum, my dad, my mother-in-law, my siblings, all having to rely on, I'm having to rely upon them. And I'm going to give my all. And I was probably up and about quicker than I should have been, not off the crutches, but just trying to do things standing on one leg. But this impact, it's far greater than me. And that's only the same as not noticing the positives that you have. So if you are not doing the things and taking the steps, and what we see time and time again is someone will do something that helps them for a short period of time and then they think they're fixed as if there was something to fix. When actually this is not a short-term thing. It's not a temporary thing. This is something that you can implement for your whole life. And you know what? If it stops working, then I will change. Not just because. So when you go back to what you said earlier about all the frameworks, all the tools and everything else, once we find the things that work, why don't we just rinse and repeat until it works no more? That's kind of where I'm at. And it's, I've seen these impacts I mentioned my dad's health, but, my mum has to go through that too. My mum has to, she would never say this, but my mum has to put, the time in to my dad at times to help him out. And like she would never like make a song and a dance about it, but it's your journey. It might be yours to own, but it's aided by so many other people.
100%. I want to go back a little bit when you mentioned about training yourself to take the subconscious into your conscious. So, like, I know you mentioned visualization without even really realizing you were doing it, but were there any other tools during that time that really helped you to gain some clarity?
Yeah, reframing things
Okay.
straight away. So, it's easy. I guess it's kind of the easiest way to look at it is like that everything happens for a reason, or if I didn't do this, and this didn't happen. But there's so many ways to reframe. I use audits a lot, whether that's kind of like an energy audit. So what's your energy givers versus your energy drainers? It always used to make me laugh. Like one way I used to switch off a hell of a lot, especially playing basketball, was by playing on my PlayStation. People would be like, yeah, but or like you're still like focused on it, or, you shouldn't be playing games. It's wasted time. But if I'm enjoying it, by the way, I'm not like a huge gamer, but if I'm enjoying it in this time, then how is it wasted time if it's allowing me to switch off in a way? I'm still getting my competitive itch out of it. Um, Energy drainers, energy givers. Now, this can go. People can get quite selfish with this because it can be like, right, that's an energy drainer. I'm just cutting you off. But I mean, sometimes you're going to have to go to some things that you don't want to be at because it's just the right thing to do. But if we look at, say, friendships as well, like if we were to audit your friendship group, like who is this relationship mutual with? Who are we sharing great things with? Who is it very one-sided? Who's like really leaning into me to make themselves feel better? Like all these different things, and maybe seeing what really works for you. And again, not just I'm not doing that because it's taking it out of me and I'm being really selfish with my time. There is an element of that, but there's still some stuff that you have to do that you might not necessarily want to do. Now, like, there's so many different ways. There's, trying to stay in a positive headspace. Something that I use at the minute, it's called a Get Ahead Mindset app. We've actually formed a partnership with them. That's a really good thing that we use and share with our clients. There's so many different things. The CIA framework, so control, influence, accept. You know, if you have something that's causing you stress, what you might as well go through this. So if you have something that's causing you stress and you draw 3 circles on a piece of paper, and you label them, what's in my control, what can I influence, and what do I have to accept? We have, well, which is also what's not in your control. Within the sphere of in your control, everything that you can control about it, you put in there. In your influence, you're going to say the things that I might have sort of 85% not control, but I can 15% influence what's going on. The final decision isn't mine, but I can have the conversations that might allow it to influence that situation. And then finally, what is 100% not in my control, so I have to get rid of it. All we're going to do is scribble that circle out, get rid of that circle. If you're spending time, which most people do, more time worrying about things that aren't in their control, you can never find a solution. You can never solutionize. If we spend it on these other 2 spheres, particularly what's in your control, that's absolutely everything that you should focus on. And the other stuff you can't do anything about it. These type of things are things that I use, my to-do list, which is called a power list. Get competitive with it. I'll draw a big W through it if I win the day and get everything done. All these small things, but that's what helps me, and these become my staples. Now, they might not work for everybody, but I've tried and tested a hell of a lot of different things to figure out what works for me.
I remember actually hearing about the energy drainer and energy giver type tool. I actually heard it on a podcast. And one of the things, I think it was Sahil Bloom, maybe, he'd mentioned how he would then pair. So if something in his chart is red, so it drains him, he'll pair it with something that gives him energy. And so that could be like meetings, they can drain you, but then pair them with a dog walk. And I actually started doing it when I was going through that time of like just dreading the gym. But I used to always reward myself after the gym with a fresh coffee at home. And I thought, why don't I just pair them together? So I'm taking the thing I'm so looking forward to in the gym. So it just gives me that extra boost. And it really, really helped. It sounds silly, but it did.
Yeah, and then another way to look at that would be like habit stacking, like because you basically knocking 2 things off at once as well. And how did you find that work for you?
Yeah, loved it. Although my problem with the gym, and this is not even for the podcast, this is another time. I don't know if it's the way I strain or my posture or so. I get headaches quite bad, like tension headaches is a problem. And I found that having coffee versus water like was not helping. It was not
Yeah,
helping
yeah,
what was going on in my head. So
yeah.
now it's the reward after the gym. I come home, have a coffee, a slice of banana bread, and I'm good to go. But yeah, I love the idea of these little tools as well. And I say little because they are small things that you can implement in your everyday. And I remember speaking to another guy in the military, and he'd said to me that when people say, I just don't have time for that, like, I just don't have time for that, it's like, there is no excuse. Like, you can find things that work for you. Like you say, that may not. That's fair enough. Don't waste time on things that aren't working. But you can always find time for things that you're supposed to pour your energy into that you know are going to help you. And that, I suppose, comes back down to discipline. Like, where is your time best spent?
No one has time until they have to have time.
Mm.
So if you don't find the time to take care of yourself now, you're going to find the time to be in a hospital bed earlier than you should have been. So it's kind of like there's not this trade-off of like, I don't have time. It, what's the point in having everything in the world if you don't have time to use it? And when I say the time, I mean the actual physical ability within a space. You know, it's what's the purpose of all of this?
You've obviously extensive background already, basketball, being an athlete, Marines, running your own businesses now. Can you share what you think is maybe been the biggest life lesson for you out of any one of those moments in your life?
One is, and it's also a quote, is never lose hope, because you can, and going back to the engineering thing, if you find a way to reverse engineer these things, you give yourself the opportunity to not just hope, but to pursue. And I would also look at, nobody's going to make this happen for you. No one can do the work that you have to do. So we can talk about it, we can dream about it, we can think it, but until we go through the action, and I keep going back to processes, the process that we've defined and believe will take us to our outcome, then your desire to do all this is falling on deaf ears. It's not possible. I had a massive realization when I met my wife of what it took to be successful within a business environment. She lives in this. I mean, I thought I knew like the relentless pursuit of excellence, and then I met her, and it's like a whole new level. And you know, she's very successful in the business sphere. But I took so much from that, and I like to think that she took a lot from me in terms of putting that back into yourself, and that's allowing us to find a balance. And this is something that, you know, we still work on to this day, but it's something that, you know, I bring one side to the table, she brings the other, and together, hopefully it all pays off. So, you know, there's so much within this, and there's no blueprint for this. There's no blueprint for anything. Once you find the things that work for you, you have to stick by them.
And she got you into Pilates.
Absolutely, yeah. So she did,
Win-win.
introduce me to Pilates, and I'm a Pilates princess. Maybe I should change this for a Stanley Cup or something.
Yeah, something pink as well. Pink or beige.
Yeah, am I jumping for an Adenola or something like that? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm rounding up towards the end now. I wanted to see if there was anything you could leave the audience with. So that might be, like, I know we've spoken quite a bit about tools and frameworks and processes that you've put in place over the years, but maybe your favorite book or a podcast or someone worth checking out that could help motivate or inspire someone going into their week.
Absolutely. So, book, I would say Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. He goes through a hell of a lot of high performers that he's had on his podcast, and sort of takes out the best part and puts it into one book. It's, yeah, I can't remember. It says on the front something about the tools of like the world's most successful people. And just to find fulfillment and contentment in your life on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't have to look as big as you are told it's supposed to on Instagram, but that small time of reinvesting into yourself can have such a big difference.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'd say, yeah, like, you know, we work on, within the life coaching element, is clarity, identity, direction, capability, and sort of following that order. So clarity of what you want to become, who are you? But when I say who are you within your identity, beyond the job title, like so many people. In fact, if someone's listening to this now, answer to yourself who you are without using what you do for work. And once we've got that, it will give us some direction, and then we will find the capability to be able to go and achieve it.
I love that. That is huge for me. I like my job will probably always be my whole world, but I cannot let it define how I feel fulfilled or content in this world. Like I have to find a way to break the barrier. And it's one of the reasons I started this podcast. I'd love to be able to change the conversation. I think I said it to you. When we all walk into a room, we meet new people at a party or in a coffee shop, and they're a complete stranger and they say, "What's your name? What do you do?" But you answer that "what do you do" question with anything other than your job.
Yeah, love it.
Mm. It's
It's
been, sorry, go on.
one final thing as well is we're all in this pursuit of excellence. We're all trying to achieve these things. We're all setting out these goals. And I know that so much of this podcast has been about like what you went on to achieve and how did you get there and the processes and everything else. But I always come back to fulfillment and contentment. And the question for that is, how do you enjoy being in the process of becoming?
Mm. Yeah. It's a huge question. And I think as well, like, this podcast isn't designed for someone to check in and an hour later their lives have changed. And I think sometimes, like for me, finding what my new definition of fulfillment has been, it's definitely changed over the last 10 years. And it's taken me probably the last 10 years to figure it out. You don't wake up overnight and have found it, but there's definitely things you can do to fast track it.
Absolutely.
Mm. Thanks so much for your time today, Jordan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.